dear learners, welcome back to the final lecture of the Residential Design lecture series. This is our 10th session and today we will be discussing on the floor planning and room level design in residential architecture, and by the end of this session you will be equipped enough to work single-handedly on designing and layouting of any residential design that comes across to you in future. I am architect Mansha Samreen from School of Architecture and Design, K.R. Mangalam University, and we will be discussing floor planning and room level design so that you become equipped in the ability to design any residential house and layout. So let's begin. Floor planning and room level design in residential architecture basically focuses on converting schematic plans into functional floor plans. The schematic plans are the plans which are derived from the bubble diagram, zoning, proximity and the overall layout in the single line plan. So from that level the design gets converted into a functional schematic floor plans. Emphasis would be more on room planning, circulation and usability, and how detailed floor planning shifts from relationships to dimensions and layout, because ultimately what you are designing, what you are doing in the layout has to be translated into the reality and it has to be a workable design solution. So to make the designs workable and make the solutions transitionably possible, all the steps of the design processes have to be done. So we need to first understand what is a residential floor plan. A residential floor plan is the actual final decision layout, final decided layout after all the processes the design has gone through, right from the conception of the design to the allotment of site, to site analysis, to doing literature review, to doing anthropometrical analysis, then doing the conceptual level plans, drawing schematics, drawing a hierarchy of spaces, doing spatial analysis, working on the connectivity diagrams, proximity charts. All these finally get converted into a scaled drawing which shows proper room sizes, shows proper wall thicknesses, shows proper openings and has proper circulation paths. It then acts as a base for working out the elevations, sections and the detailed services part. So the details of elevation, sections and services are out of the scope of this lecture design series. We will be focusing more on understanding how the scale drawing has to be a workable drawing and what are the requisites for doing a scale drawing. So a residential floor plan, as you can see in the image right now, is basically a layout which gets translated from the bubble diagram to the actual positioning of spaces. The plan that you are seeing right now on the screen clearly shows all the three aspects previously discussed, which are the position of the spaces, the hierarchy of the spaces. It shows proper positioning of walls, the thicknesses, the dimensions of the wall. It shows the position of the doors, the position of the windows along with its dimensions, what are the size of the openings, and then this plan would, once decided, would help you to generate the further elevation, sections and the details of services such as electrical and plumbing. So design development phase, the schematic has to be translated into the floor plan level. So how it is done? First we need to again revise that schematic plan is basically a relationship based plan. It doesn't have any dimension, it just gives you an understanding of spaces, how they are connected with each other. Floor plan, however, is dimensionally accurate. It is furniture oriented and is a buildable design solution. Anything that you are placing in the final schematic plan has to be workable, has to be practical. It cannot be something that is whimsical. So, in design development phase, the designers introduce the wall thicknesses. So, usually for all architectural residential design of ground plus 3, the thickness of the wall is taken as 230 mm, which is the basic brick wall, which is a 9-inch thick brick wall. So, all external walls would be a 9-inch thick brick wall, and the internal walls will be 4.5-inch thick brick walls. So, depending upon what the structure you are working on, wall thicknesses and locations of these walls are decided, door and window locations are decided, and then within the space planning, furniture layout is decided. One thing important decision that comes in here is what is the structural design that you are going to work on. Is it going to be a load bearing structure where the load of the building, load of the wall is transferred through walls and then to the foundation, or is it a frame structure where the RCC, reinforced cement concrete structures are made and all the loads are transferred through the beams and columns. So, depending upon the structural decisions that you are going to take, the wall thicknesses will be decided, but as a thumb rule, usually all outer walls are 9 inches thick, which is 230 mm, and all internal walls are treated as partition walls, which are 4.5 inches thick. But wherever services have to be integrated, where plumbing has to be integrated, those walls become thicker as per the requirements. Next important decision that comes at the design development phase is that identification where door and window has to be located. So, depending upon the furniture layout and overall integrity of the space, these decisions are taken, and if these decisions are taken earlier, the coordination with the structures and the services become very easy. So, another important aspect when you are working in the layout of the design after deciding the structural layout and the openings of the plan comes the furniture layout. So, furniture layout is basically how the space is being used. So, furniture floor planning has to be decided beforehand only, otherwise the space could not be justified. A plan without a furniture is an incomplete plan. So, plan has to be completed and a suitable or a tentative furniture layout has to be pre-decided at the planning stage itself. You might be saying that thinking that furniture are movable entities, then why these have to be fixed? So, yes, that is a correct observation. The furniture are movable and with time furniture changes, but the space will not be changing. So, a space will always be will always be a deciding factor for the layout. So, what type of layout is to be done will depend upon the designer. So, that has to be pre-decided. So, this placement of furniture helps the designers and the users to define space usage, that in this particular space, okay, I can keep 2 sets of sofas or I can keep only 1 set of sofas, because it has to be in coherence with the circulation and the movement. So, once the layout is done properly, it will help you to check the movement pattern and a proper clearance can be pre-designed, and there won't be any issues later on. So, in any plan which does not have a furniture layout is an incomplete plan. It will help to understand the circulation. So, circulation in floor planning should be a clear, it should be a direct circulation, and it should be minimum, because spaces come at a cost, and you giving away spaces in circulation without any functional utility is just a waste of space and the money. So, circulation should be a very clear circulation, the movement should be direct, it should be clear, and bare minimum area should be dedicated into circulation pattern, it should be that effective. So, key things is to avoid any dead corridors, overlapping movement should be avoided, and circulation zone needs to be connected to each other in a very logical manner. So, from circulation comes the aspect of transition of spaces, because in any layout of the plan, one space needs to be connected with the other space. So that transition has to be taken care into the mind, keeping the hierarchy of spaces that you have pre-decided in the concept stage. So social and private zones should not open directly into each other. Bedroom or bathroom doors opening into living room, dining area or kitchen area will ultimately lead to a reduction of privacy and will lead to discomfort of the users. So transition of spaces are important and are required to create a buffer between zones. They help to maintain a visual privacy. It helps also to reduce noises and disturbances, and it helps to improve the spatial hierarchy of the overall layout. So common transitional elements that architects and designers use are hallways, lobby spaces, maybe small passage spaces which could act as buffer zone between a private and a semi-private area, or between a semi-private or a public space. So in our design context of a residence and a house, so hallways always lead to a set of bedrooms. Lobby is the first space between a transitional space between the entrance and the drawing room or the living room. These can be small passage spaces also, which are leading to the service area and the utility areas, or maybe buffer zone created in a bigger space. For example, a small foyer area created at the entrance and demarcated by a partition wall, which is in turn leading to the living space or the drawing room area of the house. So simple strategies that could be utilized for designing small residence could be using of small compact hallways instead of long corridors. You could think about introducing partial partitions or screens, or maybe rearrange walls to form a physical barrier, and orient doors into open into a transition space and not directly into a living space, so that a privacy level is maintained. So transition between any public or the social space to the private areas. So in a house or a residence design, social space are basically the public space where you will let any outsider to enter into. So that transition has to be done in such a way that there is no discussion of having privacy being compromised. So it's important to understand one by one spaces. So we will start with living room planning and its importance. So living room is the first step or the first space which is the primary social space of the house. Anybody who is unknown to you, any visitor, first enters into this space. So this acts as the entry experience, and it also acts as a gathering experience. It usually gets connected to the dining room and the circulation. So layout of the living room should be such that it takes care of the traffic patterns. Traffic patterns are basically the movement patterns of the users, where the doorways and the entry points are located, how the conversational areas are led, that is the sofa and the seating arrangement, and how these become a traffic island. So usually in the design of a living room, the area where people are going to sit, basically the sofa area, it is oriented in such a way that a focal point such as TV or a painting is at an axis, and the rest of the area becomes a traffic island, and we design the circulation around it in such a way that there is no conflict in the movement pattern, or there is no conflict in the activity that is happening in that area. For example, if two people are sitting and the sofa is placed on the other side, as you can see in image number 2 on the screen, the circulation is actually cutting in between the two active spaces, which is not a good option. So the overall design layout should be such that the traffic islands are taken into consideration with respect to the circulation. The furniture is placed in such a way that it is flexible and doesn't be very stagnant. Rugs and floorings help you identify and give a decisive circulation pattern, and lighting is another aspect which helps you enlighten the or enhance the overall look and feel of the living room space. So, living room design layout is very important in terms of seating arrangement. The arrangement should be around a focal point. Pathways should be clear for movement. Any circulation cutting or any point where the circulation is being hampered should be taken care of while designing and working on the furniture layout. So, at a convenient level, the conversational distance is approximately 7 and 9 feet. If you are placing two sets of sofa where people are going to sit at a larger distance, then it is going to be difficult, or the area would not be used to its utmost potential. So, all these factors need to be taken care of where the user need is at a prime, and the furniture layout is done in such a way that it is comfortable and appropriate for a particular space. Then next comes the dining room planning and layout. So, dining room is another semi-public family space. It is located between the buffer area of living, drawing room and the kitchen area. So, it requires, again, people are sitting in the dining space. It could be family members or it could be friends who are coming over. So, that's why it's called a semi-public space, and it requires placement in such a way it doesn't give away the overall safety of the house, it doesn't get compromised, and the privacy factor has to be taken care of while doing the layouting of the dining space in the overall planning layout. So, it requires a clear movement circulation because it needs to be connected from the kitchen to the dining space where the dining table is located. So, that circulation path should be clear of any obstructions, because somebody coming from the kitchen would have most likely would be having a hot food item in the hand. So, obstruction would lead to a safety issue. So, movement and circulation should be clear, including the clear chair circulation also, because once you are sitting, the chair is inside, you get more circulation space around the table area, but when you are standing up, so enough provision for movement of the chair should be there. So, as you can see in the diagrams that are shown, a clear distance of at least 750 to 900 mm should be maintained between the edge of the wall to the edge of the chair. So, dining room circulation important aspects would be table placement, the clear pathway circulations, the proximity to the kitchen, buffet or the serving area, how the traffic movements are working out, and the clearance around the furniture, location of the doorway and the entry points, and the furniture should be placed in such a way that if a flexibility condition is required, that can also be fulfilled. Coming up to the next aspect of planning, which is very important and the heart of any residence, which is the kitchen. So, kitchen planning has majorly zones which are preparation zone, cooking zone, serving zone, cleaning area for the utensils and the storage areas for utensils and the food items. So, kitchen designing basically works on one key parameter, which is the kitchen work triangle. Kitchen work triangle is the relationship between sink, stove and refrigerator. This has to be within the limit of 26 feet, because going beyond this 26 feet, it would lead to discomfort, as the user or the person working in the kitchen will have to move more, and it will lead to problems in terms of the end usage. So, the distance between sink, stove and refrigerator makes a triangle, as you can see in the figure. So, placement of these three important things should be in such a way that it ensures efficiency and avoids long intersecting path. So, any leg should be between any edge of the triangle should be between 9 feet to 12 feet for the best circulation possible. Coming up to the most important part of any residence, which is the bedrooms. So bedrooms are basically of two categories in any residential design. One is the master bedroom and the second is the secondary bedroom. So for designing of the bedrooms, the layouting is done essentially keeping the bed as the primary element, and clear circulation is required on all the sides. Apart from bed, the bedroom also has should have the spaces for wardrobes, study or seating areas. And many a times a bedroom, especially the master bedroom or the primary bedroom, is accompanied with a toilet and a dress area. So the wardrobe can be merged into the dressing area, or it can also be merged with the vanity area. So these are few examples of bedroom circulation where enough circulation movement is placed between the bed, the side table and the wardrobe, the bed and the seating area, bed and the TV cabinet which is placed right on the opposite side of the bed. So once we are placing the bedroom in the overall site layout, few important aspects have to be taken care of, that whenever bedrooms are placed, how they are put into the layout, either if there are two bedrooms, so how they are put into the layout, they are put side by side, they are put along a hallway, or they open up into one common foyer area. So depending upon again the user need, requirement and the proximity chart that you will be working on, this decision has already been made. So once that is already decided, you can go ahead and work on placing the bedrooms in proper placement areas. Next important aspect of any residential design are the bathroom fixtures. So bathrooms are basically service spaces with strict functional need. You cannot go right or left with any of these requirements. The washrooms, the bathrooms will have three proper areas, which is the wash basin area, the WC which is the water closet area, and bath and shower area. So wash basin should be placed in such a way, because it's the most used fixture in any washroom. So it should be placed very closer to the door. Second used fixture in a washroom is a WC. So it should be placed next in terms of spatial hierarchy, and bath and shower is the least used space in any washroom, maybe used once or twice a day by a member. So it should be placed at the very end of the washroom. So putting these three important aspects, fixtures of washrooms in the washroom layout is very important, along with identifying the dry and wet zones, because the wash area is 100% wet zone, and the WC and the wash basin area are the drier zones. So it should be placed in separation, so that these do not directly overlap with each other, and the placement of these should be in such a way that the user can access these areas on priority depending upon the requirement. Second important aspect for bathroom layout is the placement of door in such a way that privacy is not manhandled. So that is again an important design decision. In addition to that, proper ventilation and lighting is a important requisite for washroom bathroom layout, and it should be overall safe and accessible for the end user. That means the tiling shouldn't be that smooth that people are slipping and falling. There should be proper arrangement, the sizes and the dimension and the distance between two fixtures should be appropriate, so that there is no conflict in the circulation. Another important aspect of residential design are the services spaces in residential planning. So we have already discussed kitchen and washrooms. Along with the kitchen comes the utility areas, where washing areas can be put, then storage areas can be put, and laundry areas should be put. So these areas should be located in such a way that they do not create any disturbance to the primary areas and the private areas of the overall residence, and the layouting of these areas should be done in such a way that it is having utmost efficiency and creating minimal disturbances to any of the private zones. So ultimately the challenge for the designer and the architect is to integrate all these rooms into one single floor plan. And if and learners, if you are following all the methods, methodologies and the process of the design that we have discussed throughout this lecture series, I am pretty sure that you will be able to formulate such design that integrates every aspect of designing, and it's functional and safe for the end user. So when you are integrating all these floor plans, make sure that they are connecting logically. That logical decision you will be taking in during the bubble diagram stage. Ensure that zoning hierarchy is maintained, circulation remains continuous, and there is a balance between efficiency and comfort for the end users. You have to make sure that ultimately the design is useful for the end user. Once the plan is in form, comes the stage of elevations and sections. So elevations and sections basically represent the vertical expression of the building. They show the height, proportion, openings of the windows and help you integrate all the services into the rightful place. Elevations translate the floor plans into built form, and they reflect the design concept, context and scale through the materials that are going to be implemented. Sections are vertical cuts through the buildings. They help understand floor to floor heights, room volumes, staircases, level changes, the light and ventilation provisions, and they explain how spaces work together vertically. They connect floor planning, structural logic and human scale. So in sections it's pertinent, it's very important that you show the staircases, section through staircase, and if the lift is there, then the section through lift shaft and lift lobby should be indicated in your drawings. So, learners, a final checklist for a residential design. First and foremost, to understand the process, do site analysis diagrams, do concept diagrams, do zoning and agency diagrams, bubble diagrams, do site planning, floor plans, elevations and sections. And you need to make sure that all these drawings must be concept driven. They should be dimensionally consistent and should coordinate with each other. A plan will never be in isolation. It will always be coordinated with site plan, the other floor plans, elevations and sections. So each stage of design is built upon the previous one. It starts with the understanding, planning, designing and representing in form of drawings. So residential design needs to balance user need, site conditions, regulations and spatial qualities. So dear learners, here I conclude the 10 lecture series of residential design, and a final takeaway from my end would be a good residence is not just a well planned residence, it is a thoughtfully designed residence for the user need and for the preference. Always remember, you are designing for somebody else, so keep the user centric approach always in mind. Thank you dear learners. I am architect Mansha Samreen signing off from this 10 lecture series of residential design. Do reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.